just joining, we're on a third part of our series where we're going to cover chapters 9 through 10. Originally, we were going to do 11, but we had a little situation, so we're only going to do 2 of those chapters. But you're not missing out too much. It's just a review of that last chapter, summarizing everything. So we'll get Kelly on a little later. But I do want to just set up and let you know that the Professional Development and Learning Department is seeking to just stay ahead of the learning trends across different places and things in our district. And one of the things that we saw a need for was blended learning. We are getting to be experts within the virtual learning setting. We know we are going to transition back to an in-person setting, but one of the, I would say, side effect or a great piece that's come out of this is we're going to be more acquainted with jumping into doing blended learning. And the book study that we did was basically putting out a call to the district to say, hey, who wants to learn about this as we try to build the plane as we fly it? And so we had a very interesting response in that we had leaders from the district level, leaders within schools, leaders within teams. A lot of different people joined in, and all of us came to the book study with kind of one perspective, but it was deepened just listening to the ways in which other people interpreted. And so what we're hoping that you come away from today is, number one, some knowledge about blended learning that you can kind of explore and jump into right away. The second thing is we hope that you can make a connection to somebody presenting if you want to talk or have further discussion. And third, we want to encourage you to also consider starting or participating in a book study so that you can be the change when you're looking at problems of practice in your respective areas. So without further ado, I do want to turn this over to 2 incredible leaders. We've got Donna Johnson and then Keela Selch that's going to be explaining and giving you a little feedback. And I also want to just give just a little heads up. I will not be able to stay the entire time. I have another meeting that conflicts, but I will turn it over to you, Keela and Donna, and thank you so much for your leadership in sharing what you've taken away from this study.
Thank you, Dr. Isaacs, for even putting the book study together. It was a really great book to read and learn from and help. And chapter 9 is about designing. You want to introduce or anything? You frozen?
You were frozen, Keela, but do you, if you want to sign back off and come back on, maybe that'll help, and then we can get the presentation, whatever your preference.
All right, can you see the?
We see your screen.
Am I there, Dr. Isaacs, or have you all lost me?
I see you, and I hear you, and it looks like your computer screen is transitioning, like in the middle of something. Okay, we see your presentation. Yes. Okay,
perfect. All right, so designing for personality and interaction in chapter 9 really talks a lot about how to bring your personality to your digital format, how to tie in, bring it to the online version. Humanize our digital content, that our digital classroom should be viewed as an extension. Then how would you do that same thing in the digital format? So think about, are you funny? Do you joke around with your students? Are you creative and crafty? And how can you carry those aspects over when you're meeting with them? So one of the things we can do is use humor. We know our students love humor. They appreciate it. It gives them something to engage with us on. It makes learning more fun and interesting. So one of the things that we need to really make sure though is we're avoiding sarcasm, especially with our younger students. They don't always pick up on those social cues, and it's also harder to deliver in an online environment. So thinking about they're not able to read our body language as much. They're not able to really see the expression on our face necessarily all the time. So one of the ways to help us with that is there's an article here, and it's linked in. It's using humor to improve student learning. And this article is a super quick, easy read. It has a lot of suggestions in it, different things that you can use to make learning fun. And one of the big things, of course, we know memes are hot right now. We see them all over the place on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So those are one of the things that we can use to make learning fun and engaging. One of the other things when you're planning for your digital content is ask yourself these 3 questions. What makes your classroom special? So if students come into the building, what makes your classroom stand out? What makes it feel like a room that they would want to be in? And do you have any of those aspects present in the digital environment as well? How does your lesson make you feel? Do you feel bored? Do you feel excited? I know the other day I was planning with one of our teachers on a Nearpod activity for social studies, and we were looking for a video to embed. And about 3 minutes in, I told her, I said, I'm super bored right now. There's no way our kids are going to like this either. So if you feel like you have to question what you're putting in there, you don't feel like it's that engaging, it's probably best to go ahead and pull that out and find something else. And then the next question, can I find the teacher in this content? When your students see your activities you've planned or the way you're presenting things, do they see you, or do they see it as something that is just having to be done, so you're doing it? And then what about your students? Are you giving them voice and choice in their activities? And we all know right now there's a character for everything. Bitmoji is hot. We have lots of awesome Bitmoji classrooms that teachers have created that have libraries with them. I've seen math Bitmoji classrooms that have a lot of hands-on or virtual hands-on manipulative students can use. There's also Voki. Voki is a neat site. You can create avatars to deliver the content. One of the things, though, like most really nice things, is it does cost money, but it does have a free trial that you can check out and see if you're interested in it. One of the things out in Michelle Eaton's book she talked about, and I thought this was really neat when I was looking into it more, there was a teacher who used Voki and created a Abraham Lincoln avatar. And he had the history lesson presented through the avatar of Abraham Lincoln. And it was really neat when reading it in the book how the students felt about having it presented that way versus the teacher being the one to present the information. One of the things that we want to make sure is when using Bitmojis or using avatars that they should not replace the actual teacher videos, that it's still important as educators we are doing our screencastifies or our YouTube videos and presenting some of the information as well. That really helps students still have that teacher-to-student connection and interaction. So Bitmojis and avatars are best used when we're giving immediate information, just like the internet, where we want to give a quick fact or something, give them a piece of information up to date, reminders for different things that they need to have finished or completed. Student creativity and personality. This goes into that voice and choice. You know, making sure our students have those opportunities to showcase their work and show their creativity and their personalities as well. Things that we can use for that are things like Flipgrid or Padlet. It allows them to record their videos. It gives them a chance to show their faces and let their voices be heard. We know that with online learning, students tend to feel a little bit isolated. I think even as adults, we're feeling a little isolated at times. And I know every time we get on a meeting, you can't help yourself but get sidetracked on conversation because you're so excited to see somebody's face and have conversation. Our students need to have those opportunities as well. Another thing that she talks about is having interactive digital lessons, and there's 3 different ways to do this. We can do it with a student-to-student interaction, student-to-teacher interaction, or the student-to-content interaction. So one of the things we want to do is make sure we try to find ways to incorporate all 3 of these when we're doing lessons throughout the day. So with student-to-student, this is where you can use things like I said in the previous slide, they can use a discussion board like Padlet. This gives them a chance to have an authentic audience. Their peers can give feedback to them, and it helps build that sense of community. You can do student to student by doing it daily, weekly, bi-weekly, but it is something that we have to be intentional about and putting in our schedule for students to interact. These activities with student to student interaction could be online or offline. You might have two students working on the same task on their computer, but doing it by working in a Google Doc or a Google Slide and giving each other comments back and forth and giving feedback that way. You may also do it offline where you have them work together like we typically would in a group side by side doing a project on the computer. Student to teacher interaction is where we have to stop and think. Are we doing our student to teacher interaction to inform students of what grades they're receiving or to guide them in their learning? And we really want to make sure that we're working with students in the format of giving them feedback, giving them information that they can use and take back, and having the chance to make changes or add things to what they're working on and grow. This student to teacher interaction could be through virtually meeting, doing it face to face. You might even use audio or video feedback. I know one of the things my own child's teacher has been using is Moat, and it's been wonderful because she can go back and hit play and not only do the words pop up on the screen, but she can hear it as well. And it gives that sense of her teacher cares, and she gets really excited every time she opens one of those up. Student to content interaction can be static, which is where they go to websites or videos that the teachers created, but we can also add interactive activities for them to do that go with that content. So we might do like things like games, simulations, learning objectives, learning objects that require them to actively like click things. So all three of these have a different purpose. So when planning, something we want to think about is how can we have multiple interactive digital, multiple interactions for students digitally in our lessons. So kind of the last thing, chapter 9 wasn't too terribly long. It's a pretty quick read. The key points with this are, let your students see your personality, the real you in person. Let them see that person online as well. Closer the teacher is to learning, the less likely cheating is to occur, and that's even digitally. So if they know that you're giving them feedback and you're there for them and you're going to have live meetings and talk to them or send them videos, they're going to be less likely to cheat because they know that they have you there to help with those things. Characters are great to add for storytelling. They're good for engagement, and they are perfect for that just-in-time information. Be intentional about creating time for students to showcase their personalities and be creative. I know Google Form is great. It's a quick, easy way to get a grade in, but we really need to be thinking about ways to allow students to work collaboratively together in a digital format and allow them opportunities to showcase themselves in multiple ways. And then coming back, think of those 3 types of interactions that you can do for your students daily. And that is all I have, Miss Donna. I think you are up.
All right, I'm Donna Johnson. I am the librarian at Coral Ridge Elementary. And my chapter of The Perfect Blend was chapter 10. Let me see if I can get this up here really quickly.
There you go, Miss Donna. We see your screen.
All right, we all set?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so chapter 10 was all about designing digital content for all learners. So the chapter objectives were to know the rationale and the legal obligations behind accessible digital content, and to understand the 9 elements of accessible digital content. And it's important because when we present content in the classroom, we're making sure that it's accessible by all of our students so that they can learn and grow. And digital content has to be presented just the same way. Not only is it the right thing to do, but it's also legally required by the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. It does not exempt digital content. And when we're on NTI, the accessibility is even more vital because it's our only option right now. It's also proactive. Accommodations are reactive based on what we learn after we teach the lesson, and making sure that everything's accessible from the get-go, that's a proactive step. And there are 9 elements to the digital accessibility that are covered in the chapter. And in the presentation, each one of these hyperlinks to the slide that covers it. That's text formatting, PDF readability, use of color, animations and visual effects, hyperlinks, images, math equations, keyboard navigation, and video, captions, and transcripts. So text formatting, you want to make sure that you're using headings and subheadings properly, because that's going to allow your students who are using screen readers to navigate those text sections. Because if you just bold, italicize, capitalize, or make the font bigger, it does not create headings, subheadings for screen readers. Someone with no visual issues could look at that and see, yes, that's a heading, but the screen reader is not going to see that. Now, word processing programs will allow you to format the text with the headings and the subheadings. Google Slides is one that doesn't, but Google Docs does allow you to do that. Now, James, when I was presenting this with the group, with the book group, when I tried to play the video, the audio didn't work, so I had to end up narrating over it. Basically, this is just showing you in Google Docs how you would set up your headings and your subheadings. So I just kind of took a little bit of information about the movie Die Hard, just because. So when you get all of your text typed in, you're going to want to go in and highlight the text that you're wanting to apply the heading or the subheading to. And again, this is going to help screen readers to navigate that little bit of text. So you just highlight the text, and then you go up to the top where it says normal text. That's your styles button. And click the down arrow, and then you pick what you want to apply to that section. So for Die Hard, I'm going to do title. And then if you go down and highlight movie information next, I would go up and make that a heading 1. Rating, stars, and trivia, all of that stuff would be, like if you were doing an outline format, that would be indented 1 over from movie information. So I would make that a heading 2. And then you can just keep on and go down even to a heading 3 as well, if you want to do that. So that's how you would do that in Google Docs. Also, in text formatting, you want to look at your font choices. You want to stick to 1 or 2 fonts. You don't want to have a whole bunch of fonts all over the place. Verdana, Tahoma, Trebuchet MS, and Georgia are all designed for the web. You don't want to use script and novelty fonts, and you don't want to use all caps because that's yelling. And one thing that I always use that I didn't really even know was a thing, I just like the way that it looked, is called camel case. And you use that in hashtags. You're going to capitalize the first letter of each word in the phrase. So in the correct example here, it would be hashtag capital we, capital stick, capital together. That's a sticker poster hashtag I use quite a lot because we have sticker posters here in my library. The screen reader, if it saw that, it would say hashtag we stick together. If you just ran it all together, all in lowercase letters, the screen reader is going to read each individual character because it's not going to know where to begin and end those words. And that's going to take a really long time also. We don't want to do that. The next aspect is PDF readability. If a PDF is just a scanned image, the screen readers are not going to work with it. So if you can Control F and search the PDF, or if you can highlight text in it, then it's an accessible PDF for a screen reader. And if you can't Control F to search and you can't highlight text, it's probably an image and it's not going to work with those screen readers. In use of color, you want to make sure you have a good contrast between your text and your background color, because as you can see, like on that top one there, it is, you really can't see what it says. And actually it says this is not very accessible. As you get a lighter color background, it becomes more accessible. Black on white is the best choice if it's going to be more than a few words. But white on black can also be a good choice for some students with visual impairments. And in the Perfect Blend, Michelle Eaton talks about a contrast checker tool, which I have linked there, which you can use to check and see your contrast ratio. And in order to do that, you need to know the color hex decimal codes. Now, there are extensions that you can get for Google Chrome that work like an eyedropper and let you like just sample a little bit of the color. But you can also do it right in Google Slides if that's what you're using. So when you have your slide pulled up and you've got your background and you've got your text and you've got everything the way that you want it, then you're just going to go to the thing that you want to use to check. You're going to click on your text first. And then, sorry, I'm trying to narrate kind of blindly because I don't have the audio playing. Let's see here. It's still going. Okay, so you click on your text. And then you're going to go and you're going to act like you're changing the color. You're not really changing the color, but you're going to go to the same spot that you would go to change your text color and go down to custom at the very bottom. And when you click on that, it's got your hex decimal code right up there at the top. So you can copy that and paste it over into your contrast checker tool. And you're going to use that as the foreground color because that's what's up front. That's your text. And then you just go back and then you're going to highlight your shape that's behind the text and do the same thing. You're going to act like you're going to change that fill color, but you're really not. Go down to custom. There's your hexadecimal code. Copy it over into the contrast checker as the background color. And it will tell you your contrast ratio. The higher, the better. This one's 1.25 to 1, which is not a very good contrast ratio. So, and that's the same as the one example here on the top. The one that's more accessible with the light purple background is 9.43 to 1. The contrast ratio of black on white or vice versa is 21 to 1. So that's what you're looking for in a contrast. The next point is animations and visual effects. It can be harmful to individuals or students that have seizure disorders. So web accessibility guidelines is calling for no more than 3 flashes per second. But I mean, we can't really sit there and count the flashes usually. And a lot of things flash. Ads flash, scrolling RSS feeds. There's all kinds of other flashing content. So basically the best thing to do is just don't use any flashing or blinking animations because then you know you're fine. If you're doing presentations, you want to do a slow transition. Direct students to websites without those flashing ads and other aspects. But if you have to, you can use a Chrome extension like Adobe, which is linked there, to download that website as a PDF and present it to your students that way. And if your site that you're directing the students to has an RSS feed, make sure it's got a pause option so they can stop the scrolling. Hyperlinks should have an appropriate name that shows what the user is going to, not just like click here or some other vague name. So on the right-hand side, this is a graphic from the book, web accessibility information. That's perfect because they know exactly what's going to happen when they click on that. Click here is not good. And using the URL as the hyperlink text is really bad, especially for a screen reader, because it's going to sit there and read each individual character just like it would do with a hashtag that was not in camel case. And again, that's going to take forever. Images should have alt text, which is a short description of an image. So for this Bitmoji here, an alt text would be Bitmoji image of Mrs. Johnson in a blue shirt, smiling and giving a thumbs up behind a large green check mark. And you can do that in Google Slides by just right-clicking the image and selecting alt text. It is visible to screen readers, but it does not show on the actual page. And you can use it on a whole bunch of different sites, but the process is different. For example, Twitter, when you very first upload the image, if you click edit, then alt, you can put your alt tag on. Longer descriptions are more like a transcript, and those are awesome for infographics, charts, and any kind of image that has a lot of information on it. Bitmoji Classrooms, they're great. I have so many Bitmoji things, but the only bad thing about them is they can be a real bandwidth hog because each individual image has to load up. And if it's something that you're going to be editing a whole lot, then you're probably fine because this is kind of a bit of an involved process. But basically, what you would do is you would get your Bitmoji Classroom set up completely the way that you want it, all the images and everything in place. And then you're going to download the image of that slide, and you're going to turn it into a background. So you go into File, and before you download it, you're going to go to the page setup, because if you don't do this, it's going to make it very grainy when you do download it. So you go to the page setup. Let me back up just a little bit. And you're going to select Custom. And whatever's there, add a 0 to it. So we've got 10. We're going to change that to 100 on the width. We've got 5.63. We're going to change it to 56.3 on the width. And that is going to make it to where when you download that image as a PNG, you can use it as a background, and it's not going to look fuzzy or blurry or anything like that. The only thing I would caution is make sure that when you get done downloading it, you go back and change that back, because if you go back to do any more edits to this particular slide, like 12-point font is going to be super tiny. So you just need to make sure that you change it back. But then you would go to another presentation, and you're going to set the background of your slide as the image that you just downloaded with the changes to the size, and make it as a background. Then what you're going to do is anywhere that the student needs to click, you're going to, and oh, shows the difference in the resolution. So you can see, especially with the letters, you can see it's a little less fuzzy on slide number 2. So then what you're going to do is you're going to, anywhere that the student needs to click on it, you're just going to go over that background, and you're going to insert a clear box, a transparent box. So you're just going to draw a shape right over the top of whatever Bitmoji you want them to click on. So for example, here I'm just going to draw one over door number 1. Just make it roughly the same size. And then up for fill, we're going to change that to transparent. And now you can do your link, Control K, and put in your link that you want to add to it. And then that way they're not waiting for so many images to load, because they're really just waiting for that background image to load, because everything else is transparent. And let's see. Math equations have to be checked for accessibility by a screen reader. If you cannot highlight parts of the equation, it's probably an image. You can use an alt tag with the math symbols typed out as words if it's an image, or you can use an equation editor tool with the Math ML designation, or use Microsoft Word, because their equation editor is accessible. Keyboard navigation, if you have difficulty with fine motor skills in your students, it's hard for them to use that touchpad or mouse. You can test a site for keyboard navigation by using Tab, see if it goes to the next button that you could click. Shift Tab takes you back. Enter or Spacebar clicks on the selected link. Microsoft Office and G Suite includes that. And then there's some more keyboard navigation checkers that are linked over there on the side. Video captions and transcripts. They have to have accurate transcripts or captions to be accessibility compliant. Some automatic captions are better than others. YouTube will allow you to edit or upload captions on your own content, but you can create transcripts for other people's videos if the captions aren't that great. And on the right, it shows some ways that you can get those set up in Google tools like Docs, Slides, and Meet. And these are just the key points, just a little bit of a recap with the ISTE standards there. Make sure that all your students can engage with your content, make sure it's accessible, because it is our legal obligation, but it's also what's best for our students. And you might not have time to go back and fix all the stuff that you've already made, and that's fine. But you can focus on, from this point on, going forward, making sure that all your digital content is accessible. And that was chapter 10.
That was outstanding. I gotta say, I was not aware of the screen reader info or the trick. Because we downloaded a lot of slides as images, which is great to get a picture from that slide, but to increase the resolution of it and make it sharper, that is such a handy little trick. And I love doing the clear transparency for the buttons. Those are just neat little pieces. Now, were those in the book, or did you just add those in?
That's actually based on something that I found on Twitter, where someone was talking about how bad the Bitmoji classrooms were. So I just threw that in because I just kind of discovered it. I was like, well, I did this, but my picture looks awful. So I just started Googling and trying to find a way to fix it.
That is outstanding. Thank you for those little helps there. All right. Kayla, Donna, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't. I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for presenting. I know Dr. Isaac said she was going out and doing some things. This is just amazing work, and I will say the same thing that she was saying, that we appreciate the leaders in the district like yourselves going out and doing this for our teachers and taking that dive into she had a lot of water analogies, taking that dive in and learning how to blend these things, because yeah, technology is very dependent now, but we don't want it to go away, and we have those skills, and then getting it to go into how we would use that in the brick and mortar classroom to get the both and maximize our time, make our lives easier. What is the best way to do that? And there's a lot of great information in here, great best practices. So thank you both for your work.